This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon, 1 week away from the DSP draft spectacular. I'm looking forward to this week's conversation. A lot of interesting things to talk about in the world of Detroit sports, and doing it as always, my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? What's going down?
Man, this is a cram show, like super football heavy, not just NFL. I want to get your reaction to what took place with the USFL with their inaugural weekend. And we got to talk some Tigers, some injuries going on. So this is just a massive show. And I'm excited for next week, man. Next week's going to be a really good show. It was fun last year when we did it. It's going to be even better this year. I'm excited, dude. So I just can't wait to get next week here, and I can't wait to get into the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots going on in Detroit sports with the Tigers, the Lions, a significant offensive player in the league, scrubbed social media from the team that he plays for. Could the Lions target him? We've talked about it a little bit, but we'll dive deeper into it later on. But we got to start the show, obviously, with pissing. You know, obviously, when you come across a story and it's like, I love when you check into stories from newspapers and they're like, the reason Al Sabatka from the Red Wings got fired is he urinated in an inappropriate place. You're like, wait a minute. All right. You earned my click. And you're like, wait a minute. Really? That's the reason why a Zamboni drain that got filled with his urine cost this man his job? It seems like it has a little bit of some information that may be left out that we need to know more of. But he is suing Al Sabatka, if you don't know. Longtime Zamboni driver, waved the octopus, created so many great memories when we were young teenagers, when the Wings had their run. He became a staple of Joe Louis Arena for young people and for Red Wings fans near and far. All of a sudden, you know, you're not seeing him around anymore, and all of a sudden you find out dude got shit canned by the Red Wings unceremoniously. And you're like, what the hell happened? You know, for me, I always go really outrageous. Maybe he was banging someone he wasn't supposed to be. He was saying things he wasn't supposed to be, getting drunk, doing something nefarious. And then you read earlier on Wednesday that dude couldn't hold his piss, and he just, you know, we've all been there, you know, where you just are doing something, you know, like we could be podcasting. It's happened to me before in session. Maybe in 20 years, I've walked out of a session twice because I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, but it just, that the pressure builds. And if you're a female listener, I'm sorry to put it this way, but I'm sure you've experienced it too. You get this huge pressure in your region, and you're like, oh my God, it's horrible. And if you try to stop it, it makes it worse. And we've all had that little dribble that you're like, as you run to the bathroom, and you're like, oh boy, that if you waited like that extra 2 seconds, you were going to have yellow all over your pants. So, you know, to not have sympathy for the man who had a condition, you know, obviously what bothered me was it said in the Free Press article that a male employee saw him, and then subsequently he had a meeting with HR and he was dismissed. So I'm like, at what point do you just say, okay, I saw a dude, you know, drop trout and piss. Do you just talk to Al and say, look, dude, you know, don't do that? And then Al will say, look, I know, but it was just something that caught up to me. But bottom line, it feels like the situation could have been handled a lot better. I feel like it's an overreaction to fire a guy if the reason was he pissed down a drain that really didn't impact too many people.
So 4/21/2022, Doc admits he gets pee boners with clients in sessions.
Twice. It only happened twice in 20 years. It happened.
Mark it down.
Yeah, it happened. But I was like, because you know it's happened where it's light and you're like, okay, you know, the client's talking for another 18 minutes. You can hold it. and you can just listen and tap your leg, do the little pee-pee dance privately. This one time, man, it was so bad, and I couldn't even hold it. I'm like, I'm so sorry, and just ran out the door, and literally, just ran out and lately, that morning piss when it just fills, you're just like, oh yes, the drain just feels amazing. Yes, you just feel lighter, and it's an amazing feeling for those of you that don't get that pressure. Oh, it's an amazing feeling to drain the nozzle, man. I'll tell you.
So when this story initially broke, I was like, okay, here's the deal. Al's been with the team for over 30 years. He's like a legend himself. It's like Gordie Howe, Ted Lindsay, Al Sabaka, Terry Sawchuk. So him getting fired shocked me. And similar to you, I was like, if he did something inappropriate in front of a woman, okay. Or if he did something inappropriate to a woman, okay. Or if there was some type of sexual misconduct to a male, okay. Then the story comes out that he pissed in a drain, like a runoff for the Zamboni. So when you empty the Zamboni, there's got to be a drain for all the water to go into. He pissed in that because he's got, what does he have here? I was just reading about it. He's got benign prostatic hypertrophy. So basically the dude has prostate cancer. He's got the benign version of it, but he's got prostate cancer. So he's got to pee. And another dude catches him peeing in a drain. Let's not all act like we haven't pissed in a drain before or you haven't pissed outside. I'll be honest with you. I used to pee in the wash sink. I'd be downstairs folding laundry and I got to go real bad. Well, I don't feel like walking up the stairs, so I'm going to piss in the wash sink. So you just pull it out and you go and then you just rinse it down and you call it a day and you keep it moving. I pissed outside before. I pissed outside your office before because I couldn't get in and I had to go. So these things that all have happened, everybody has done them. And for another male employee to see this, I don't really understand what the deal is. Maybe you just say, Al, what are you doing? You couldn't make it to the bathroom. And I was like, no, I couldn't. I have a condition. And you're just like, all right, well, whatever. You keep it moving. And if you're HR and you're the Red Wings, he was suspended. That's fine. Maybe have a conversation with him and be like, Al, we can't have you doing these things. If we have to, can we get you a diaper, or can we get you, is there anything we can do to help facilitate this? To make this better for you? Ask him if there's anything to make it better for him. And if he's like, no, there's nothing you can do. All I can do is piss in drains. Well, at that point, you're like, look, at the end of the season, we're going to have to reevaluate a couple of things. And that's what you do. You don't fire him mid-season this way and let the man go out because he peed in a drain because he's got the benign version of prostate cancer. You don't do that to a guy, especially a guy who's been there forever and a day. This guy was there when the Wings sucked. He was there when they were just getting good. And then they were good, and then they suck again. So, what are you doing? It's bad enough. You know what his penalty is? It's bad enough that he's got to watch this product. He's got to watch the team get flexed 7-0 in games, and then watch them turn around and win games they shouldn't win 4-3 in overtime. He shouldn't have to watch this product as much as he's had to. So, come on now. Let's be for real.
He had to file a lawsuit in order to potentially state his case that he was wrongfully terminated. So stay tuned. It's interesting, but absolutely, it really hints to loyalty, to the fact that, maybe you could have been a little bit more sympathetic to the man. Maybe you have a mutually parting of the ways after the season. You have a ceremony. You'd say, look, Al, it's time. We're going to bring in somebody else or something, something different than the way it was handled, because it just kind of seems like you broomed the guy out. But, I don't know, zero tolerance policies nowadays. Maybe, Al did a little shimmy shake that he wasn't supposed to do. I don't know. We don't know the whole story. It's all going to come out. But it just
if the dude's doing the helicopter dance over the drain and he's winking at the guy, then we maybe have a problem.
Right.
But if he's just relieving himself because he can't help it, come on now.
And it will be funny the day that you pull up the deposition and it's like Mr. Sabatka is asked by the attorney, did you perform helicopter in front of Al? Mr. Sabatka proceeded to remove his drawers and then did the helicopter in front of Sammy. And then Sammy had to go, and it's like, okay. Oh, brother,
I love how you sound exhausted by this.
It is, because it's not right. That's not what should be in print, is that Al Sabatka gets ratted out by a male employee for pissing in a drain. That's not how it should go. It should be a ceremony. It should be after a game. It should be something important. That's not how somebody that's been with your company all that long. And then real quickly as a sidebar, I love Steve's loyalty to Detroit Sports Podcast. He's loyal to me, obviously. He's like, he found out that you pissed on the wall. He's like, Adam should go. And I'm like, Adam has 6 of the 7 departments that we run here. What are you talking about? It's never going to happen. Steve's like, fire him. Like, you don't care. Thanks, Steve.
Steve's looking to come on as the new CFO of the company.
Right, exactly. That's probably what it is. So no, we're loyal here. I don't think we fired anybody. They just move on, or they do something else, or they go from podcasting into the stuff that they want to be into. So it's crazy.
Originally, when we set this all up, it was for us to do this, and then we were like, look, there are other people that we've associated, like Vito. Vito invited us to his college campus when he was doing stuff on a college radio station, and we're like, hey, you want to do some more stuff? And he was like, yeah. All right, cool. Who else you want to bring with you? And then Jason Jarvie, same deal.
That's what happened.
Met at Specs, was like, you want to do some more stuff? He was like, yeah, sure. And you just got to bring them along. And we've had multiple people do things with us. And then when they get done, they get done.
They get done. Yeah, exactly. We're not trying to broom people out. We don't have no standards. We ain't got no HR policies. Come on. You can pee on my wall all you want. We're joking around. It's funny as hell. Funny as hell you revealed it. Adam's like, yeah, I did it. I'm like, I didn't even think about it. Adam doesn't have to tell me anything, Vito, for sure. Vito, we got to question everything. Vito is unbelievable.
You can't trust Vito. Hey, did you see Vito's most recent Facebook picture? Him and the St. Francis Center sitting next to the collection of stuff.
Yeah.
What's taller, the box of things or Vito? I think the box of things out-tower Vito.
Vito, the man of the people, the man at De La Salle, handling his business. But that's
everything.
Doing his thing. Yeah, absolutely. You realize that sometimes companies and their employees just have a tumultuous situation. So there's going to be more to come from that whole thing. But I think you and I are in the same boat. We're a little bit more loyal. We don't care about that thing where we would say, okay, formally speaking, we got to write you up, wink, wink, nod, nod on paper, but please keep your wang in your pants and don't be doing that again. Especially there's no consequence. It's not like you went to the women's bathroom. It's like life is about common sense and consequences. If maybe he's been told repeatedly, but obviously he should have said, I have a condition. It's like, I don't know if he revealed it, didn't reveal it, but it's absolutely crazy that this is how it went down for Al Sabatka. But I do want to get into the Tigers, another series that we got a chance to see in an early portion of the series that they're into now with the Yankees. And boy, cuz it really sucks because now we've been podcasting nearly a decade, and now for the better part of 5-6 seasons, we're starting to see how the shitty weather affects the Tigers roster. And it just is a huge complete power outage. And then compounded with injuries to Matt Manning, Casey Mize, Javier Baez. And you're going, come on, 4-6. It's not entertaining. And then you look at the crowds, it's devastatingly low. And you're like, when the schedule comes out, please, schedule makers, can you help the Tigers and not have the Red Sox and Yankees, teams that are draws in and of themselves, huge media markets, lots of attention, not come to town in April when it's freaking snowing? You know what I'm saying? Can we just get them in August so we can have huge crowds? We get a chance to see the legs of DJ LeMahieu and the vaunted New York Yankee team that comes into town. Instead, we're all on Miggy watch, and there's 1,000 people in the crowd, and it's empty. The time I went on a Wednesday, it was completely empty. It was me and the 20 guys there that were enjoying the game. More media than fans actually took in the game, and it's been crazy. But I am concerned. Luckily, the reports are that Mize is not going to require surgery because I was full on about to panic in regards to him potentially needing Tommy John.
I was going to say, were you thinking Michael Fulmer syndrome here?
Yeah.
With Casey Mize and Matt Manning both, I was thinking, oh crap, Michael Fulmer just rearing his ugly head again.
Yeah, now we got to look at their violent deliveries. You got to look at it and you say, this is what stinks with pitchers, is that you never know, one pitch away from quote unquote elbow soreness and Tommy John. But I think they're all going to come back. and I don't think it's going to be that much of a concern. I don't think they're going to get off to a 9-24 start. I think they're going to be around 2 to 3 games under 500 all year. I think that they can get victories. It's just unfortunate that this offense in Detroit is just horrible to start the year. And it may be something. I know people are maybe like have a hard time saying it, but I'll say it. I think it's real. I mean, we're not being prejudiced here, but Hispanic players seem to struggle in the cold. And all players really in general seem to struggle in the cold, but the Tigers have a plethora of Venezuelan players. So, we're not being, judgmental here, that a lot of the batting averages are low across the board. So the Tigers roster, Hispanic players, American players, just players in general, seem to have a struggle. But you look at it, Boston didn't seem to have a struggle crushing baseballs. So you wonder what the hell's going on. What's with the slow starts offensively with the Detroit Tigers? And these injuries, I just look at it and I say, what the hell's going on here? I look at it like it's a Detroit Lions syndrome where all the time you get all this potential, but if the likes of your best players and pitchers can't get on the baseball diamond, you're fucked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what you said because we have enough history of this now. You've seen it time and time again. Miguel Cabrera is a prime example of all of that. He doesn't really heat up until we get into the later stages of May. It almost takes him, 2.5 months to really get warmed up and really get going. And you can say that about a lot of the Tigers, where the offense doesn't really come around until May, and they don't really start putting up runs and driving runs across the plate until that part of the season, when the weather gets a little bit warmer, when things kind of get a little bit nicer outside. This weekend, we're supposed to have temperatures in the 70s, and watch these guys go out and watch them rake. You know what I'm saying? And then over the course of next week, it'll be similar to how it is when it's in the 40s and in the 50s, and then watch those runs dry up. So I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're saying. There is a time-tested and true history of that with these players. I think the big concern, not so much with the offense, because I think the offense will come around. I think it's one of those things where it does have to get a little bit warmer. They need a couple more at-bats. They just kind of have to get into the rhythm and get into the flow. I'm not necessarily worried about the Tigers. I do have concerns about Casey Mize. I do have concerns about Matt Manning. I do have concerns about Javi Baez. Casey Mize, Matt Manning, both some arm and elbow soreness and tightness. These are things, like you said, leads to Tommy John, and all of a sudden the velocity dips. Tommy John is not just a surgery where you're out for 3 months, rehab, and you come back and by the end of the season. It's not that type of deal. You're basically done for the rest of the season, and then you're done for next season. You got to work your way back up. It's a long journey back, and you never really come back to where you once were. I mean, you just don't. Michael Fulmer is probably the most stunning example of that. That was a guy that you wanted traded 3-4 seasons ago, and everybody was like, no, hold on to him. They end up holding on to him. Elbow goes dead, has to have Tommy John, and now he's a reliever. And his velocity wanes anywhere, like when he's on, velocity's 96, 97. When he's not on, it's like 90, 92. And that's a huge dip. And there's not a whole lot you can do there. So I have a lot of concern with the two pitchers, more so than a guy like Javi Baez. But Javi Baez having a thumb injury, it's a bit of a concern because that can mess with you all season long. The way you throw the ball, the way your at bats go, that's one of those things that also just doesn't get fixed. It just doesn't get better. Yeah, you're going to sit on the 10-day DL and you're hoping to come back, but does that have any lasting injuries? You throw a baseball, and when you throw a baseball, you do use your fingertips. And if you have a blister, or if you have a callus, or if there's something more going on there where it's a bone bruise, the way that ball is going to come out of your hand is going to be different every time. And it's going to be really difficult to make those spectacular plays from shortstop or from second base and get those balls over to first base to get guys out. So I have a lot of concern with a lot of these injuries with this team, especially early. I do think the bats come around, though. But the big concern is going to see when these guys do come off of the DL, how do they perform? Do you think that any of these injuries kind of linger and we see these guys go back on the DL a couple of times and maybe some of these guys get DL'd for 60 days or more?
No, I think that they're going to take it easy with Mize. Manning, I think, is going to be a situation to monitor still as well. But I think the Tigers, at least what's good is once they recognize an issue, they've been pretty good. Michael Fulmer came back. He's now in the bullpen. So you look at it and you say, okay, you just have to take care, make sure these guys are developing properly, obviously do a recheck of all the young arms, but cause there's a lot of players that are ready in the minors to come in and take these guys' jobs. So let's get after it. If Casey Mize can't develop his secondary pitches to the level where he can be a true number 1 or 2, then you got to move on. And that's just the way it is. I think that the biggest concern is just, maybe Javi Baez in regards to, how is the thumb going to potentially affect his swing, his violent swing? And you just got to, also recognize, I know you heard how he got the injury celebrating the walk-off, which is terrible. I mean, jumping up and down and celebrating, it's always, makes you wonder.
It's like Joel Samaya.
Yeah, it always makes you wonder. Detroit can't have nice things. And you're just like, seriously? You can't even celebrate properly without missing some time. And that first game against the Yankees, man, it really highlighted, before we start talking about football, really highlighted what's wrong with baseball, in that you can't have 4-hour games that are sloppy, where you don't make the fundamental play defensively. When the Yankees gift you that many walks and you can't take advantage of the runners in scoring position, it's horrible. Like, we're geeks. You and I are geeks. We're not the ones that are going to be the target of baseball. They need the young fan. My nephew is not going to sit there and watch a 4-hour game when he has an opportunity to catch the highlights and stream it and just fast forward it. So he'll probably go from the first inning to the 6th inning just like that, and then you can work your way. So to grab the youth, you got to do a lot more. And you recognize that any situation with baseball has to be, you just got to find a way to make it a little bit more entertaining for the fans to get out there. I mean, you can't have Comerica Park with 2,000 people in it. It's a bad sight, a bad look. And, I hope, in the next coming months and years, they figure out how to get their broadcast back on Dish, DirecTV, and back in the fold, because you're missing out. And look, it's going to be something where the league is going to kill the golden goose here if you don't grow the brand. I mean, all these baby boomers are going to pass on, and you got to figure out that if you don't capture the youth, forget about it. These games are too long and sloppy. I mean, oh my gosh, when you don't make a play and your defensive-minded catcher, is part of, some things that you say, well, he's not as good as maybe you thought he was defensively, and then you got to start looking elsewhere. So we'll see. It's still early, 10 games in. There's still an opportunity to pay attention, but a slow start for sure for the Detroit Tigers. Now, before we get into the hardcore football, we should ease into it with a product that you and I both watched. And unfortunately, here's the problem, cuz here's the situation that really belittles and makes things really bad for a league. When the biggest story from your league is a former Michigan running back getting canned over chicken salad and pizza, something is wrong. I mean, that video went viral quick. And for the league to run that as part of a behind-the-scenes situation, that's fucked up. And you recognize, okay, the USFL, in theory, has an opportunity to do some things with the name, with the situations that you have. But now here's the problem that you have, and it goes to everything. When you're starting something new, do you remember how diligent we were with posting? We posted and we still are, but I don't know to the same degree. When we first started, we had a podcast, and it would go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. We'd hit everything. I mean, literally, we posted on groups with 20 people that were in it. Now we hit everything.
I was telling Alyssa about the early days where we would just sit at your kitchen table
and just post.
And we would just grind until 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and both of us have to go to work the next day.
Exactly.
Like, and it was like a love affair. It was an obsession.
Exactly. And why? Because we knew if we put our name on it, we wanted it to be good. We wanted it to be perfect. We wanted it to be something where if somebody heard it and they said, okay, let's try and emulate it, they didn't want to emulate shit. But USFL has a rain delay, and the game is supposed to start at 3 o'clock, and USA is running like Law and Order, special teams unit.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, where's the game? And you're like, where's the tweet? Where's the information? Where's the shit that you got? Where's the info about the delay? Look, you gotta do a better job. And then, that story with Devion Smith is just crazy. I mean, because the biggest thing for me was the way it went down was coach sits him down and goes, you're out. And he's like, wait a minute, let me tell you what happened. And it's like, shouldn't that story went the other way? Like, Devion, tell us what happened, man. But, from the team side, the Pittsburgh Maulers, I believe, they said that he was disrespectful and he's come out and said, I ain't like that. So
like a lunch lady.
Yeah, so that's gonna be, that's gonna be crazy to see. And I love our supporters. They were like, bro, don't you forget, Michigan Wolverines don't eat chicken because that's a bird that just is not worthy of the mouths of Michigan Wolverines. And I'm like, but pizza is? So, okay. So aside from the antics and the silly drama there, okay, look, I have to always acknowledge that I did go to Michigan State, but I did hear this from Wolverines as well because you've all been traumatized by this story as well. But when your first pick of your league is Shea Patterson, your league is fucked. And I know that it's based on positions and things like that, but there was really only going to be 2 or 3 Kennys that were having a boner over Paxton Lynch coming into the game. And I was like, Kenny, are you serious? Because he was over the house. I was like, Kenny, Paxton Lynch is coming on. He's like, oh, really? So he perked up a little bit. And then I obviously did not watch the opening game. People thought it was entertaining. Fine, great.
Here's the thing. The first game, the first 2 hours, 2.5 hours, were boring as fuck.
Exactly.
Right? The final, 45 minutes was absolutely great. It was really, really good. The last little bit was awesome. But the first little bit sucked. It was like these guys forgot how to play football, and it took them 2.5 quarters to figure out, like, oh, it's the same game. We just operate a little bit slower than the dudes in the NFL. It'll be okay.
For me, it didn't even catch my attention, dude. I'm busy. So I was like, I'm going to attach myself and give the Panthers a chance. Even though it's on at noon on Easter, I'll give it a chance. And I was like, what the hell is this? The offensive line for the Panthers can't block. And Shea Patterson's running for his life. He's dropping the football. And you're like, okay, you see offense in some form, but it just appeared that the league discovered that, okay, with limited practice time, we can teach the players 4-yard outs, and we can teach them bubble screens, and we can teach them hitches.
It really felt like it was a Jeff Fisher offense.
Yeah. Run, hitch, run.
Right.
But
Third and 16, and we're backed up on our 4. Let's do a halfback draw. Like, wait, what? Gonna run it up the middle where you haven't had any success running the ball all day. What are we doing? Like, let your quarterback at least attempt to pass.
And people said it that have looked at it and reviewed it. It got 3 million viewers, which is fine. Everybody wants to see the freak show for the first week. Now pay attention to week 2, because if it gets a 0.8 down to 1, I think the ratings are going to go down from a 3 million down to a 1. You'll see it that way because the product was like, what? And here's the thing. The league in the past paid players millions.
Yes.
You had Steve Young. You had the likes of talented football players that were, on the verge of playing in big-time football leagues. And you competed. So to do it this way, okay, yes, you have gadgets. Yes, you have more access to mics and things like that. I get it. And that's fine. The television product looked okay. But bottom line, you don't have NFL caliber players, and that makes your league shitty because you don't have, you don't have players ranked in the top 1,000 in college. You got the players ranked 1,000 and below.
What you can get, like, to go play in this league, if you win every single game and you win the championship, you're walking out of there with $75,000 plus.
I mean, bro, exactly.
I mean, it is not a ton of money. No, look, I would take $75,000 to go play football in a heartbeat. I would do it, right? These guys are getting paid decently compared to you, me, and everybody else. Well, maybe not so much you, but compared to me, they're getting paid pretty decent. So, I get it. And this is a chance for you to maybe try to make it to the NFL. But you're right. Look at who your first overall draft pick was. Now, if I was in charge of the Panthers, you know who my first guy would have been? Would have brought tons of attention. He's a guy who can do things. What's Colin Kaepernick doing? Colin Kaepernick should still be in the NFL. Go get Colin Kaepernick. He would be the perfect fit for a Jeff Fisher offense who loves to run the ball and loves to throw it some of the time. Colin Kaepernick's out there. I'm just saying, go get this guy, make him the face of your league, and let's call it a day. I don't care if you love him, hate him, whatever. There's going to be no, you were the one who told me a long time ago, it's all press, baby. Whether it's good or it's bad, it's all press. There's your press right there.
Yeah.
You can write all the stories about him. Be a Michigan Panther, it'd be great. It'd be fantastic.
There you go. And he'll have his opportunity. Okay. You know what? You do it. Hey, we're going to pay, just to say it, we're going to pay Colin Kaepernick $2 million to play in this league. Mm-hmm. And it'll be Colin and the Scrubs. And that's just the way it'll be. But yeah, absolutely. I was down on it. Michigan Panthers game, it was a drag to get to. So I watched the first quarter and we put down the second and third to then come back to the fourth to see what happens. So right now for me, that's probably how I'm going to take it in, is catch maybe a series or two early, catch the highlight later, not on the DVR schedule, not it for me, and it's unfortunate that, okay, and I know perception sometimes can become reality, but to see a more jovial Jeff Fisher just told me, like, dude's just happy to be talking to people about football. Like, Jeff Fisher was a hard ass.
Yeah.
Jeff Fisher was somebody that made his players hate him. Now he's all yucking it up with the players, and he's like, yeah, smiling a lot more. So that means there's no pressure. He's got a paycheck. It's about development, and it's unfortunate because obviously you and I cover football at the highest of high levels. So it's just these leagues, they keep trying to, tap the golden well, and it's just something completely different. That's not what they need to be doing, and that's just the way it is. I think the USFL is going to fold after year 1 or 2, guaranteed. And maybe the XFL will gain that advantage by learning from the mistakes of the USFL, but week 1, disappointing, and I think you and I agree.
Do you think that maybe they started too quick? Like, these players only had 3 weeks of a training season. So, like, they basically came in off their couch eating potato chips to trying to play what I'm going to call is a medium caliber of football. I'm not going to call it high caliber. Obviously, the NFL is high caliber. I'll say the CFL is high caliber. This is a medium level of football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you need more time together to gel offensively, offensive lines, but the talent's just not there. So that's unfortunate. That's just the way it is. But a team that sometimes looks like the USFL, but they play in the National Football League, is the Detroit Lions. And we got to get to it because it's juicy and everybody's talking about it. But here's the thing, which is funny, and in this business it's great, is that Detroit Sports Podcast and SIO Lions, we talked about Deebo Samuel earlier this month when he scrubbed, the day he scrubbed the 49ers off his social media. I believe it was Vito or Christian wrote an article on SIO Lions, pros and cons of trading for Deebo Samuel. Then it gets reported on Wednesday this week that he told the reporter, I want to be traded officially. And then the floodgates opened up royally. And if you guys pay attention, sometimes, not all the time, on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, I will throw out some subliminal messages. And there was one that I did post on April 7th, and it was Deebo from Friday. So I think you guys all caught it, and if you didn't, I posted it again on Wednesday. That was my little bit of like the bat signal to Brad Holmes. That was the DSP bat signal for you Batman fans of the 70s and 80s when he had the symbol and that was time for Batman and Robin to get into action. That was my Brad Holmes Batman call for Deebo Samuel, and obviously he missed the call because he's going through all these pre-draft visits and planning for his talk today with the media on Thursday. But fine, you didn't get it. Now I overtly am telling you the Lions should get Deebo Samuel. It makes no sense not to, because I understand those of you that will argue draft picks are capital and it's important to build through the draft, but you only have a 50% chance of getting a player that's going to do anything. That's your chance. That's the high-end GMs. Obviously, Brad Holmes hit on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but what about the 7th-round pick running back that didn't see the field? What about Levi Onwuzurike? What about Ifeatu Melifonwu? What about Derek Barnes? All those guys are question marks. So when you put them on a list, you should start with they still have to prove it. So pick 32, pick 34 are not worth Deebo Samuel. You can't tell me Lewis Cine and Daxton Hill year 1 are worth Deebo Samuel right now. Pay the $25 million. Cut a couple guys. You guys cannot stay loyal to a team that has 3 wins. If you tell me that this offense with Jared Goff could have Deebo Samuel, DJ Chark, TJ Hawkinson, then Amon-Ra St. Brown with it, I think you at least now have a no doubt about it chance to evaluate Jared Goff. And I would argue, and I'll say this, if they were to bring Deebo Samuel here and they were to stay healthy, that's a playoff team. That's a playoff offense in this NFC North that took a turn for the worse with 2 new coaches and Devontae Adams leaving the division. This is a playoff team with Deebo Samuel, so make the move. What are you talking about? I understand capital and getting it, and that's great. Trading down, I get it. But the love affair with the listeners and supporters with draft picks is crazy. And I'm not saying go draft 5, trade 5 draft picks, but 30, 32 and next year's first, I do it.
So hold on, that's where I kind of want to take this conversation. I want to know what you're willing to give up for Deebo Samuel. So you're willing? Are you willing to give up pick number 2 this year?
No, that's a tough one because you need that defensive lineman.
Exactly. So pick 32, you're willing to part with.
Willing to part with 32 and 34 and a first from next year.
Okay, all right. So like I'm kind of on board with you. I feel like giving up that much this year because I feel the same way you do. I think Deebo Samuel is a really special player, and you're right. You have a 50-50 shot to turn pick 32 and pick 34 into whatever Deebo Samuel can produce. You have a really hard time trying to turn whatever those players are to get the same type of value, whether it be offensively or defensively. But I don't know if I would give up 32 and 34. I'd give up 32 for sure. I'd give up a first next year, and I probably would give up a third this year and maybe a fourth next year. But I'm in the same boat with you. Like, what's it hurt to even make the phone call, right? Like, you hear early on the Jets are offering up pick number 10. So if the Jets are offering pick number 10, your pick number 32 doesn't really matter. And depending on what else the Jets are willing to part with, you're going to have a bit of an uphill battle. But I feel like Brad Holmes still has to pick up the phone. Like, you have to make the call. And the way this team is currently structured with its cap space, you bring him in this year, you sign him to his extension that he's looking for, pay the man his money, you're going to end up getting rid of guys next year that's going to open up all kinds of cap space. Vaitai, see you later. Michael Brockers, he's not sticking around. See you later. If this team's any good or this team is supposed to be tracking in the right direction, Michael Brockers won't be here. Bye, bro. It's okay. Like, you have the ability to free up extra cap space to go and sign this guy. It is disappointing that you don't hear a team like the Detroit Lions even being in the realm of making a phone call or even offering anything. And that is truly disappointing from an organization that needs to do things differently, needs to go out there and be a little bit aggressive, needs to go out there and really harvest some talent. You mean to tell me if you go out there and you grab Deebo Samuel and you put him on this team with Amon-Ra St. Brown and you've got DeAndre Swift, you mean to tell me that there aren't other quarterbacks? We just seen the most amount of quarterbacks, like established franchise quarterbacks, like faces of organizations. We've just seen the most guys move. Player movement is all over the place. You mean to tell me that you couldn't get another quarterback who'd want to come here and play with those guys?
Look,
you'd be out of your mind if you told me no.
Look, at this point in time, I look at it like I understand that Brad Holmes can make a phone call. Look, he picks up the phone, he talks to the general manager, and you say, okay, what do you think? I understand.
Lynch, what are you taking?
Yeah,
it's like, I want it all.
It's part of the job. It's part of the job. I don't care about the phone call. I don't care about hearing that, okay, the Lions, came close to making the deal and lost out to the Jets. It's about time. Like, I understand everyone's like, be patient with the rebuild. look, we sitting here are not the Lions and making the decisions. So they can try to sell you this slow rebuild. As fans, you should want to push them, and it's their job to balance it out. But I think at some point you have to take a calculated risk where you look at it and you can't be so rigid where you say our plan is to build entirely through the draft and then pick one or two calculated risks. Well, not every day Deebo Samuel comes to fruition. It's not every day that a guy that could come in and complement other receivers. You know how much better he would make Chark? Oh my God. You know how much better he would make Amon-Ra St. Brown? He would force defenses to decide who to cover. You would have a lot of opportunity.
All of a sudden, you don't have 8 guys in the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to take out your running backs,
you're
getting to your quarterback.
So you know how much better he makes DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams? So sometimes you just got to also make it really for PR. Like, we're not fucking around. We're not trying to dilly-dally and take 5 years and take all the Sheila's money. We're trying to see an opportunity and win now. Now, I could understand passing on DK Metcalf, passing on a quarterback that, loves his massages more than life itself. I could see passing on something like that, but a guy that was productive, that was in the playoffs, that was one buffoonish defender away from getting to the Super Bowl, you got to take a serious look at what you can do to make the deal happen and be aggressive. So I hope they at least, I know for fans, at least you hear that they're in the mix and make an offer. But man, would that be crazy to get a dominant pass rusher at number 2 and then secure Deebo Samuel with it? Oh my God. So
here's the thing. Let's look at it like this too. This is another way you can look at it. In this draft, this will lead right into what we were scheduled to talk about. What do you want the Lions to do with their first 3 picks? And I want that aggressive pass rusher.
Yep.
And I think with one of the 2 picks later on, whether it be 32, whether it be 34, I wanted a wide receiver. And I wanted that wide receiver to be productive. You mean to tell me you can go get that pass rusher and you go get a guy like Deebo Samuel who completely opens up the playbook for your offense? I'm going to say take that all day long. That means you just hit on 2 of your first 3 picks. That means you're hitting 66%, which is a lot better than 50%. If you could tell me that you could do that, you could add a day 1 starter on defense, add an edge rusher who's going to get to the quarterback, and then go add a wide receiver like Deebo Samuel who can do things not just in the pass game but also things in the run game. You're going to tell me you're going to add a guy like that? Yeah, I'm there all day because that's what I want you to go do anyways. That's what I want you to go get. Go get that. Why not? You can go do this.
Yeah, if you don't go on with Deebo Samuel, I would be okay with the dominant pass rusher at 2 and then 2 wide receivers at 32 and 34. But what will eventually I think happen is, I know it's tough because a lot of people could see the quarterback at number 2, but I don't think you pass on the likes of Jermaine Johnson or Kayvon Thibodeau. I just don't see that. I think that would be malfeasance, and that would be really, really challenging your scouting to find a dominant pass rusher at number 32. I just think that would be really, really tough.
What do you think the likelihood is of this team actually taking a quarterback? Somewhere in the first 3 rounds.
Now, if you're nefarious and you really want to sell a rebuild, you do it. Because you could say, you buy yourself another year by taking the quarterback. You really do. And you could sell it to the fan base because of the fact, they'd be angry at first, but you could sell it that this is the quarterback we want to develop that's going to take us to the promised land. And that's your free year while you continue to pick your other 7 players. But I don't see it. The hole is there. They're the worst pass rushing team in the league, among the worst. You can't pass on Kayvon Thibodeau, Trayvon Walker, Jermaine Johnson. They're right there. That's a value position. You can't not do that. You can't take a safety. You can't take the quarterback and when you got Jared Goff who the organization seems to be fond of. So, for me, just to wrap up the earlier talk, Brad Holmes' mentor, Les Snead, put a shirt on when they won the Super Bowl, and the shirt said, "Fuck the picks." What did that mean? They fucked the picks because they traded so many of them. The Rams don't have a first rounder this year. They traded so many picks.
It's like 2026.
Right. They don't have a first rounder. Fuck the picks. Get the players. So what I want them to do is obviously focused a little bit on the offense at 32 and 34 and defense at 32. But what I think is going to happen is at 32, you're probably going to see probably a safety. You know, it could be a wide receiver if there's one there, but you have to look at history. Brad Holmes can find wide receivers that are talented later on in the draft. So if they find that, you know, the likes of Treylon Burks, Olave, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, if they're off the board, then I think the highest wide receiver on their board will be in later rounds. So I think they go safety, and then I think then potentially at 34, you look at linebacker or you look at another impactful defensive player, whether it be cornerback or safety, if you don't do it at 32. So I think it's going to be heavy 2/3 defense with the first 3 picks.
See, I'm in the same boat as you. This is what I'm thinking. I want that edge rusher at 2. Unless you're taking a quarterback, there's no quarterback that I want to spend my second overall pick on. So I'm going defensive end, and then I'm coming back later in the draft, and however you want to juxtapose it, I don't care. I want a wide receiver, and I want something else for my defense, whether it be a cornerback or whether it be an impactful linebacker. If you can get, Lewis Cine out of Georgia, if you can grab him, he's there, add him, get him. If you can go grab a linebacker who's going to wreak havoc, grab him. If there is a defensive lineman, sure, why not? You win in the trenches. So it's adding some type of combination of defensive players and a wide receiver. And like you said, it's 2 parts defense, 1 part wide receiver there. And specifically, it's a wide receiver. No running back. I don't want a running back in my first 2 rounds. I don't want a quarterback in my first 2 rounds. This is something else I want to kind of talk to you about. We've got a mock draft we got to jump into, but do you think that there is serious interest in a quarterback for this team? You've had different quarterbacks in here. You've had Kenny Pickett in here. You've had multiple rumors, multiple speculation about the Lions maybe liking Malik
Willis.
Malik Willis, thank you. There's a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about the Lions being attached to a quarterback, possibly very early in the first round or later in the first round. What do you think the actual potential is for them going out and grabbing a quarterback? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I will be on suicide watch if they go and get a quarterback. There should be no quarterbacks taken in the first 3 rounds of this draft.
No, none at all for the Lions, because you would have to then make the logical argument, if you want to take a quarterback at 32, then you should have taken one at 2. Take the best one. Yeah. You know, take Malik Willis and go with it. But Desmond Ridder, they all have faults. So I would pass. I don't see them needing the quarterback this year because of the quality. They need a quarterback. They need someone to test Jared Goff, but the quality of what you're seeing is just not there. And it's unfortunate that, of course, this is the year where there's not a lot of good quarterbacks and the Lions sit there with the number 2 pick. Of course, that would happen. So, but I do want to ask you this before you tell me your thoughts on the latest ESPN mock draft. Because obviously, you and I love playing poker. We love aggressiveness. Any scenario, because everyone's talking about trading down, talking about adding capital. Is there a player? Is there a wide receiver? Is there a defensive lineman where you would say, okay, the Lions could package 32, 34, and a first from next year to move up to number 8, 9, or 10? Is there a player that you would say, okay, would I gamble to maybe take Thibodeau at number 2 and then go balls to the wall on the defensive line and then secure Jordan Davis with 8, 9, or 10? The pick there by being aggressive and moving up? Or do you package 34 and a second to move up to 15 or 16 with the Saints, maybe, and get Garrett Wilson or get Chris Olave and just get the best wide receiver? Because if they do get aggressive for a defensive lineman from Georgia, I'm okay with it. If they package and get aggressive for Drake London, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with you. The only guy that I could realistically be okay with them moving up for and giving stuff away for is a guy like Jordan Davis. If you can go out and get that impactful edge rusher and you can get that guy who's going to clog up the middle and he's going to put pressure on the quarterback. 'Cause that's what this league's all about right now, right? It's about putting pressure on the quarterback and basically collapsing his pocket and forcing him to throw and making them uncomfortable. If you make the quarterback uncomfortable, you guys can get off the field and get the ball into your offensive hands. Jordan Davis is the only guy that I'm really comfortable with this team moving up to go get, really packaging a couple of items to go get. And it's weird because very early on in this process, this was a guy who was mocked to the Detroit Lions with that 32nd pick, and now he has basically climbed all the way up to the mid-teens and even into the top 10. So this is a guy who's a riser, and it's going to take a couple of things for you to actually get up to go get him. But he is the only guy. I don't want to see them trading up to go grab a wide receiver. There are a ton of wide receivers in this draft. There's a ton of depth at wide receiver. And if you're Brad Holmes, your calling card is Cooper Kupp. You can go find wide receivers, go find a wide receiver and make it happen.
Absolutely. All right. It's mock draft season, baby, and they're in full swing. And cause you've seen it, the predictions for number 2 with the Lions, there's like half a dozen guys.
It's crazy.
Hutchinson, Walker, Thibodeau, Sauce Gardner. You have a lot of opportunity. Kyle Hamilton is kind of further now in the background. So there's a serious amount of speculation regarding number 2. But I'm curious, what did you make of 2 of the most predominant draft analysts who put out mock drafts? And boy, guys, I know you guys will sometimes tweet us at Detroit Podcast. Who cares about the mock draft? Or you'll message, I don't care what Mel Kiper says. I don't care what Todd McShay says. Guys, I gotta tell you, bullshit. Because when we write what they say, you guys read it. So that's why we include it. So I'm very, very sorry to disappoint you. But when they talk, people listen. So, I'm sorry to say that you can't poo-poo what they say. That's why they're on ESPN. That's why they're the predominant draft analysts out there. And when they put a mock draft out there, you got to pay attention. And they each do one, but this mock draft that was put out this week by ESPN was a dueling mock draft, or it was a mock draft where, to better say it, where each of them took turns making the pick for 3 rounds. And I'm okay with it in general, but I hated it for the Lions.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I want to start. With the second pick, Aiden Hutchinson's already off the board. So you've got your choice of defensive ends like Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Jordan Davis is there. You've got Sauce Gardner there. Malik Willis is there. Jermaine Johnson's there. Garrett Wilson's there if you're looking at wide receiver this early. Where would you have gone if you were the Detroit Lions? Who would you have taken at this point? I just gave you a couple of names.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at it, and let me ask you this: I'm having a hard time locking down that Aiden Hutchinson will be number 1.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time locking it down.
Here's the thing: I'll give you the first 3 picks. It's Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, and Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah,
I think either one of those guys, any one of those guys,
could be interchangeable.
Could possibly go number 1.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't know if there's a ton of separation between any of those guys, which makes it really, really difficult. Like, you go and you look at all the projections and you read through all the stuff and you just try to break it all down. You watch game film, you really dig in deep and you look at some of the more analytical stats and just try to really crunch some numbers. I don't know if these guys are necessarily all that different. And I think that makes it really, really difficult when you're picking at 1, because I don't know if Aiden Hutchinson's going. He could be an offensive tackle. Jacksonville needs quite a bit of things. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. Listen, I want to wait maybe until next week to reveal the reasons why, maybe in detail, but I will say this. I really believe the best chance for everyone involved, for business and readership and for the Lions and their potential and for a little bit of spice in the locker room, I just think the Lions need to really, if Hutchinson's off the board, you take Thibodeau. If Hutchinson's not number 1, you make him the number 2 pick and you keep it moving. So I want Thibodeau. I want Thibodeau. Period.
I agree with you. And look, I'm a huge Trayvon Walker fan, but like I said, when you start looking at some of the more interesting analytical stats, he does a lot of his best work as what would be an outside linebacker. He's not necessarily your edge rusher. So he would be more, if they were sticking wholeheartedly with a 3-4, he could be your outside linebacker, but I don't see him as being an edge rusher at the next level. Really and truly, I do see him being a very productive linebacker, though. Almost like Josh Allen was in college. Josh Allen, very similar. Not the quarterback, the defensive end / linebacker. He's kind of a hybrid player. He's a guy who's kind of long, can get to the quarterback. This is a guy who makes a lot of splash plays in the field, not necessarily winning that battle at the line of scrimmage, and that has me a little bit nervous. So I'm with you. I would go Kayvon Thibodeau. Kiper ends up picking Trayvon Walker. All right, let's move down to what they did at 32, because I think that's really interesting. And if this happens, I'm going to be a very, very, very upset person. So at 32, you've got a couple of guys available. Lewis Seen's available. Boya Maffe's available. Jalen Petry's available. Trevor Linderbaum is available if you're looking to go offensive line. Bryce Hall's available if you're looking to go running back. So you do have some options here. David Ajabo ends up going at 30. I thought that was kind of interesting. This is a guy who, if he's available later in the draft, fourth round, I'd grab him in a heartbeat, because I think that would be a guy who could pay dividends. You take a little bit of a risk on him, could pay dividends. Devin Lloyd, inside linebacker out of Utah. He's also gone, the pick right before the Lions. Mel Kiper has Desmond Ridder going to the Detroit Lions at 32.
Thumbs down. So
you're not okay with that? Me neither. I hate it. At 32, I'm thinking Lewis Seen all day.
Yeah, absolutely. You need that player. He's the player that eventually goes 34 to the Lions. You just can't take a quarterback at 32, and you're especially not going to take Desmond Ridder. I think that you wait, you use that pick for a wide receiver or an impactful defender, and I don't see the Lions taking a quarterback in the first round. I just don't see it. It was upsetting because it really kind of felt like when you looked at the draft, it looked really good, the mock draft, up until the stuff with the Lions. So you got 32, 34. 32 is Ridder. You and I are disappointed. 34 is Lewis Seen. That's fine. I think that he has an opportunity to potentially be a good player. But at the same time, I think Daxton Hill, if he's there as well, might be, something that you look at 32 or 34 as well. And then you get to the third round. What do you think about?
Well, hold on. We've got 34 to go still.
Yeah, 34 is they got Seen.
So they took Lewis Seen. Yeah. I wanted him at 32.
Yeah.
Would you? So I said earlier that I wanted some version of defense,
yeah,
wide receiver. Now,
okay,
what I'll tell you is I would be okay if it plays out this way, and you've got Boya Mafe there,
yep,
you've got Query Walker there, you've got a chance to really go defense, and really load up and add pieces at all three levels of your defense. I would be totally okay with them going with either an outside linebacker or an inside linebacker, either taking Mafe or taking Walker with that 34th pick. I would be totally okay with that. Would you be all right with them basically adding just their first three picks, all defense?
Yes, I would be more than okay with that. And stay tuned today when you download this podcast. Vito, his Thursday article is going to be officially declaring how many draft players in the 2022 draft for the Lions should be on defense. And I can't wait to read his argument as to how many of the 8. I hope it's at least 5 or more. I think Vito always plays it safe, so he's going to probably, I want him to say 5, but I think he's going to say 4. So we'll see, because you need a lot. The Lions need a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And of course they lost the pick in the NFL draft fuck up, and only the Lions would go from 9 to 8 when they fucked up the draft order. But it's 8 and 8 for now. So we'll see. What do you make of the Lions pick early in the third round, number 66, the second pick in the third round, Channing Tindall at linebacker out of Georgia. Passing, which bothered me the most because that was what I highlighted when I sent you the mock draft, was me personally, I'm more of a fan of Chad Muma, inside linebacker, Wyoming. He goes next. So I highlighted that and said, why not Muma? I've seen him all over the place. I like what he brings to the table more than Channing Tindall. So I would take Chad Muma in this position at 66. But I think you have to go linebacker as soon as possible. If not 32, 34, then 66. I get the position. I would go with Chad Muma, though.
Yeah, I mean, with the way this draft has kind of unfolded, I understand why you go linebacker here, and I'm with you. I go Chad Muma. If the draft was to play out the way I said it would play out, where they loaded up on with three defensive players in those first 3 picks, when you come back here in the third round, I'm taking a wide receiver. They've got Calvin Austin out of Memphis as their next highest wide receiver. I'm not really okay with that. A guy that I've been high on since the Senior Bowl, Jalen Tolbert. I really like him. I think he's a guy who could fit in nicely. I don't know if third round, this high in the third round is a little bit high for him. But I would probably go offense here. I'd add that wide receiver at this point. If Chad Muma's there and you can add him and you go defense with your first 4 picks, I mean, I think it tells you that this defense is getting overhauled in a major way. And I'm okay with that. And I'm totally cool with that. So let's go down to later in the third round. Because they do have a compensatory pick, don't they? Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
97.
Number 97. And this pissed me off. This one, at this point in time, I'm like, no. Oh, a fucking running back, Isaiah Spiller? No. I erased that. I scratched that out and just put, okay, I got to remember it for the podcast. But I said, hell no. Now, for me, my pick might piss people off. Probably it's going to piss you off. But in my situation, if you ask me how many players on offense, the ratio would be 2 players on offense and 6 players on defense. But one of the picks on offense would be in the first round, be 32 or 34, and the next one would be right here at 37. And I love Isaiah Likely, the tight end from Coastal Carolina. I think he is the perfect complement to TJ Hawkinson. You watch the tape, he's a big boy, he can handle his business, and I think having another pass catcher who finished second among FBS tight ends in both receiving yards, 912, and touchdown catches with 12 last year, I want the best, and I hope he's there, and I hope the Lions seriously don't shy away from taking a player of his caliber because they think they got enough in Brock Wright and TJ Hawkinson. I think Likely is better than Brock Wright and would provide a lot of asset to that room. So absolutely no on running back, but yes on the tight end.
Dude, I like where your head's at, and I agree with you. Like, going through the available players that are left, that's a guy that I would take. And that's a position that I think needs to be addressed. So I'm in lockstep with you. It's weird. You would think we do quite a bit of show prep. We go back and forth exchanging different notes and stuff, but we didn't even talk about this. Like, we didn't even discuss who we take, where we take them. This is just us just kind of going through it together, and it's crazy that we both agree. Like, we should be a 2-headed monster and go GM a team someplace.
Well, because we know the needs of the team, and running back's not one of them.
No, so. I thought that was the dumbest thing. I was like, what? I was like, are you serious here?
Yeah. So
absolutely crazy.
It's absolutely crazy, but we'll rate this mock draft to see. I think it could be better. There's a lot of them out there, but these guys, they change it up a lot too from the first ones they give out to the last one, but this one could have been a lot better for the Detroit Lions. It's good for other teams. The Jets get good quality, the Saints, Eagles, they all get good shit. It's just the Lions that got shit on where they're like, oh shit, we got to pick something. Let's just pick a line. Let's pick a running back. Let's pick a safety and shit like that. So that's what we think of that mock draft. So many good ones. Make sure on Fridays you check out SIO Lions as Vito rounds them up and pays attention to all of them, and he puts them in one place for your viewing pleasure. Good shit, cuz 1 week away, it's going to be a fun time for the draft. Stay tuned to next Thursday where we get all the writers, as many as possible, collectively to share their insight, and we do a first-round mock draft where each writer's assigned a couple teams, and we go at it and we say who's going to be who are going to be the players in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft. cuz that was a good broadcast. That hour just simply flew by. Always enjoy broadcasting with you, podcasting since 2013. Make sure everybody follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast, and anywhere that you choose to listen to your favorite podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whether it be Spotify. Just type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content finds you, dedicated to the Pistons, Wings, to the Tigers. All is good in the world of Detroit sports, and you guys make it very, very fun for us to broadcast. Podcasting time coming to a close. Let's get out of here, cuz. Let's get back at it next week.